So hello again everyone, and welcome to the next in our series of lockdown webcasts that we're bringing you every day from Travel Weekly to keep everybody connected during these unprecedented times of the COVID-19 pandemic. And you can see I'm joined today by John and Irene Hays. They really need no introduction, but it's wonderful to have you join us on this webcast, both of you, because it's been a very, very trying 10 weeks or so, I'm sure. But we'd love to know how you guys have been coping with it all. So let's kick off straight away. Obviously, you know, you were the heroes of the high street. Not so long ago, you snapped up those Thomas Cook stores, re-employed lots of people. But some would say that that timing, given what was to come, could not have been any worse. I mean, you're both smiling there, but you know, how has it affected the way you've navigated through this crisis? Has it put a lot of extra pressure on you, or what's happened? Tell us how it's been going.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a lifetime ago now, middle to end of February, before BC, before Corona. It was just, things were going so well. We had a really good January. We're having a fantastic February. And I went to see the CEA with our group finance director to report to the CEO on our progress, and we're ahead of forecasts. Things were great, and it was just as things were, one or two clouds were starting to get in the horizon. The cruise ship was there towards the end of February, and there was just a little cloud on the horizon, but overall things were fantastic. Here we are now. Just
okay,
so totally different world. Yeah.
So totally different world. But I mean, you know, did it sort of put more pressure on you as a business then, because you obviously got more costs, more staff, you know, all the things that other people are having to deal with, but you're doing it at a much bigger scale and probably, you know, twice the size of what you had before. So tell us how you've coped.
It's pretty good in that I think that most people know that there's just John and I who own the business, and we have a very small but very experienced board. So I think the first thing that I would say is around quick decision making, and that when you're in those circumstances, we've had a board meeting every single day since we went into lockdown. So
we've had one or two off on weekends.
Yeah. So from that point of view, I think it's fair to say that we reacted very quickly, and we were one of the first to actually reduce salaries. We did that incredibly quickly before Rishi Sunak announced the support to companies. We also did some, I think, quite interesting work with all of our people. We have some incredibly bright, talented people in Hays Travel, and we took early steps to seek their advice on the sorts of things we should be doing to reduce cost. So in those very early days, again, before the announcement of government support, and we received in excess of 1,000 good ideas for saving costs or generating revenue, and that saved us £1.8 million from the suggestions of staff. Now, we're our way through those, and some of them were relatively small, such as stop cleaning the windows as frequently, or stop paying for us all to have free milk in our shops, and very small things. But then people had said, could we go back and renegotiate any contracts that we have with suppliers? And our supply team were just astonishing. So they came back with some really innovative suggestions around that. So yes, it's difficult because of the size of the salary bill, but we have so much talent, and they give us ideas every single week. They talk to us. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Generally on a Saturday morning, we go through all of the emails we've had from all the staff saying, have you thought about doing this? And wouldn't it be good if we did that? And as soon as you open the door to that sort of thinking, it's been so impressive, hasn't it? I mean, it's been really impressive.
I think we try and always listen to our staff, and obviously we've got over 5,000 staff now. We've got the vast majority of them working, and we're paying for them, not on furlough. There's relatively small percentage still on furlough, foreign exchange staff or whatever, because no one's taking foreign exchange or whatever. So in terms of the size of the Thomas, having taken on Thomas Cook, everything's an awful lot bigger than it was. But as Irene said, we've got some great people. We don't regret it, and we just getting on with it, really.
And on that point, I mean, you said you were quick to move on reducing salaries. You were also quick to move on furloughing staff. But then, of course, you brought a load back, thousands back. So did you regret furloughing them early on then? And why did you bring them back? Because demand hasn't really massively increased. I mean, was it to deal with all the cancellations or what?
Yeah, I think probably everyone in circumstances like this, every person, every company in this situation, your first instinct is to cut costs and just let's try and survive this. Let's just get through this. And we did do that, but really, really quickly. Within a couple of days, I kind of said to the board, I don't think this is right. We've built the business on looking after our customers, and when we're through this, our customers will remember who's looked after them, and we need our people back to save the sale. And so we quite quickly brought people, very quickly brought people back. I brought everyone back that we could to work from home to save the sale and to relate to our customers. And obviously, we've got problems, so you can't keep every single customer happy. But overall, the results we're getting in terms of sales saved and independent results from Martin and Lewis's moneyexpert.com showing a satisfaction rate of about plus 770 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think you came second on that money saving experts chart, that league table, which is great, because of course, a lot of agents have been finding it very difficult to refund customers. So what's been your secret? Has your size and scale just enabled you to play hardball with suppliers, much more effectively, or have you been refunding yourselves before the supplier has actually given you the money back? I mean, how have you managed to get that good score?
I think just first of all, to say something about playing hardball, it's not our style. I think every time we speak with our suppliers, every time we meet with them, we always talk about the history of partnership that we've had. We've been in business for 40 years now. And that business has been built on a truly symbiotic relationship with the suppliers, and it's not in our nature or style. So it has been incredibly difficult for us, and at times we have felt very much like piggy in the middle, bearing the brunt of the customer's challenge and the customer's anxiety, genuine anxiety that they're not going to get their money back. And we have been as sympathetic as we possibly can be to the suppliers, because we know that our suppliers are in a similar position.
Yeah.
And we will come through this. We will. And it's really important that those relationships stay strong, isn't it?
Yeah, I think every agent, we're really sympathetic to all of our staff who are in the firing line between clients and their refunds or whatever. And it's just like a big tribute, not just to all of our staff, but every agent in the country, because you're getting abuse, day in, day out, because of refunds not happening, and it's not a nice place to be. I think following on from what Irene's just said, we've always prided ourselves on looking after our staff and valuing the relationships with suppliers. I think we have been refunding out of our own pocket. We started off in a strong position. Irene and I own the whole business. We've no debt, really strong balance sheet, and we haven't needed to draw a dividend for the last decade or so. So that's a nice, very strong position to start with. However, I feel, as a board, we feel that we're having to start drawing a line in terms of our sympathy with our suppliers, many of whom we've had really good relationships over many, many years. And so we're starting to have conversations with suppliers, which we're really regretting and haven't wanted to do. But it's more than 6 weeks now, and many agents up and down the country, well, I think virtually every agent up and down the country is in the same position as we are. You kind of reach a point where we want to do the right thing by our customers, and we also need to protect the company, we need to protect Hays Travel, and then eventually your patience wears a bit thin. So we have started having conversations very, very reluctantly, where we're owed very considerable sums of money from suppliers, where we're actually saying, really, we're not willing or able to continue like this. This has gone on long enough, and regrettably, we're starting to have conversations saying, we're going to have to take your sale. It's a very heavy heart that we're doing that, but this isn't sustainable, and we know everybody's in a tough place.
And how have those conversations? Are they working? If you're saying to somebody, "We're going to take you off sale," have you got suppliers now saying, "All right, I'll pay up"? I mean, is it having an effect?
We're not going to go with that. No. Lucy, good try. And you had to ask. But really, our relationships with our suppliers are confidential. But we are right on the cusp, where if we're not getting the right answer, I think in the next few days, I think we might start seeing us taking those suppliers off sale. But I'm not prepared to, obviously not prepared to name them.
No, I don't need you to name them, but I think it's interesting because you can't keep, you just said you're having to pay some refunds out of your own pocket. You're the largest UK retailer. Cash is king at the moment. It's a key point in the year. I mean, how does it affect your own finance? You said you both own the company, but I mean, there comes a point you can't just keep bleeding money. So.
Yeah. So from a financial point of view, we have done a forecast for 18 months, which is not very pretty at all, and it doesn't make very good reading. But we don't think we're going to be the worst around. And we're taking all reasonable steps. We're taking advantage of all of the government schemes, as you would expect us to. We're probably going to go and have a look at a loan, although never in the history of the company have we ever had any debt, and we didn't need any to do the Thomas Cook transaction either. So that will be a first, but from a point of view of being prudent, it'll be the first time that we're having a look at that. So we're taking advantage. We're taking advantage of the furlough scheme on and off, even though that's a minority of staff now. We've taken advantage of rates relief and the grants, which are up to the level allowed. And we are negotiating with landlords to have rent holidays and take all of those sorts of actions to support the cash position. And miraculously, in the last few weeks, we've started selling holidays.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's come on to that in a minute. Let's talk then about the government announcement recently around the reopening of non-essential retail. So this is allowing, obviously, travel agencies to open on June the 15th if they want to. What's your plan for that? You've obviously got a huge retail estate. I imagine you're not going to open every single shop, but are you going to open some on the 15th, or what's your reopening plan?
I mean, we always prided ourselves on listening to our staff and working closely with our staff. We're doing surveys of our staff, sampling what people think. I think we're not necessarily in a rush to necessarily be the first. Things are working well, people working from home, but we understand from our staff's point of view, some of them want to get back with their teams, and I think where they can all get safely to work and be together again where they want it, we will do that, obviously in a safe fashion. But at the minute, we are evaluating things, and we're not going to rush, or certainly not going to force our staff to do anything they don't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, we still have lots of people who have lots of caring responsibilities, and until there's more certainty about such things as the schools situation. So the school situation is big for many of our staff, but there are other considerations as well. So until we're all very comfortable about the security for the staff and security for our customers, and we've got a clearer understanding of what's going to happen with schools, we're doing it on a gradual basis, but it's not going to be big bang.
And so, sorry, just to be clear, will there be any that open on that first day, or do you think it will be gradual?
Probably, we're still evaluating the results, talking to our staff. We haven't sampled all of our staff, got 5,000, but we have been talking with regional managers and branch managers in certain areas, and we've sort of sampled, for example, thoroughly Northern Ireland. We've only got 20 odd shops there. We thought that might be a kind of good sample size to an in-depth survey, and we're sending out our staff. I'm pretty certain it won't be a big bang.
Okay, all right, and then just sort of, that's the sort of immediate thing, isn't it? But in terms of the whole estate, do you think, after this crisis, there will be some Thomas Cook shops or Hays shops that don't reopen at all?
So this morning, I've just signed off the rental agreements for a further 8. So that's going on. We had a report yesterday that the new signage is going up. Every single week we have 6, 7, 8, 9 of the new signs as soon as we get through the lease negotiation, and all of that is ongoing. So at this point in time, we do not have any plans to stop or stall that process at all, but we don't know how long this is going to go on for. And in relation to some of the rents, we have gone back for a further negotiation, it's fair to say, with our landlords. So we're working through that process again.
And that's to get the rents lowered, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think the world's changed. A few months ago, we were absolutely delighted with the Thomas Cook acquisition, and we still are. We're not going to. We don't regret making the decision. But obviously, we need to keep reevaluating things. But at this moment in time, in terms of specific shop closures or anything of that nature, there's no specific. We're doing what any prudent business would do. We're evaluating the situation and monitoring it, but there's no specific plans whatsoever.
Okay. And I seem to remember a date that you talked about, both of you, and you remember we did that dinner and you talked about a date which I think was July, and it was the date by which that you could walk away from some of those leases without incurring all the costs that you would get if you were going to, of closing a retail unit. And so that must be quite a key date in the calendar, because or are you able to extend that date, because that's crucial, isn't it? Because if you don't want to open some of them, then you would need to make that decision before July.
Yeah, so if you recall, the deal with Thomas Cook was that we had a license to operate in the first instance for 9 months. Then we signed signed the deal on the 8th of October 2019, and you're quite right, that would have taken us through to July. But we also had an extension to extend that for 3 months. So we will definitely have the extension for 3 months, but because these are such exceptional circumstances, it's likely that if we needed to, we would go back and seek a further extension if that were possible.
Okay, so that gives you that bit of breathing space, so you don't have to make decisions on shrinking your estate. So currently, you can keep it as is, I guess, unless this goes on. I mean, we talk about it going on, but there have been some, you know, green shoots and slightly more positive conversations. I wonder what your view is, though, on this quarantine announcement, because, you know, we were starting to feel a bit more positive, and then we've now got this quarantine thing looming, which a lot of the industry is saying is just the last straw. You know, it's going to kill off any sort of prospect of anything happening this summer. I know there's been a sort of a lobbying group, you know, 70 odd signatures, you know, trying to get that overturned at the Home Office. Will Hays be adding its name to that? Is it something you'd like to see abandoned, those plans?
Yes, we'd certainly want to see it abandoned. I think we didn't add our name, not because we, to the petition, wasn't because we agree with the quarantine. We think it's not sensible. It's not. It's almost like looking at the stable after the horses bolted. I could understand a quarantine 2 months ago when all of this was starting. I think now it's ludicrous, really, quite frankly, because we live in Sunderland, and I'm told that Sunderland's the coronavirus hotspot for the whole of the United Kingdom. So someone has told me, which means we're the hotspot for the whole of Europe now, if that's the case. And so to actually people leave Sunderland, for example, go to somewhere like Portugal, it's had very few cases, got everything under control. And then because they're coming back from Portugal, which is safer, they then have to go in quarantine for 4 nights. It's just not sensible. So I think hopefully the quarantine will get reviewed.
Okay, and just in general lobbying, I mean, there's been lots of issues around this, whether it's been around extension of the package travel regulations early on, then there was the sort of the refund credit notes being guaranteed financially, or this quarantine thing. What have you done as the largest UK independent retailer in terms of lobbying the government to get support for the industry?
I think keep our powder dry. I think again it's a style issue. We tend to play the cards that we're dealt with, and it's very difficult to actually, within a tight time scale, change legislation and go through due process. It's very difficult to take an announcement that has been made by a minister and change that. So I think a partial view is that we have been pragmatic about that, and we've taken each invitation on its merits, each invitation to participate, and we have a look at the likelihood of its success or otherwise. And
I think, Lucy, you've known us for many years, and I think whenever you've asked us to speculate and say what we've been doing, we've always said no. We've tended to say things when we've actually delivered them, and we're quite private individuals, and we don't go around shouting the odds. We just announce things when we've actually done them.
Yeah, I get that, but clearly you are now of a big size. I mean, you're already big, and now you're of a huge size. You're also very well known, your name now, because of all the media attention you've got over the acquisition of Thomas Cook. And so I think, perhaps people expect to see your name or the company's name in that sort of lobbying role.
We didn't say we've been doing nothing, Lucy. I think the latest thing around the quarantine had very political things in addition to the the quarantine. If it had stuck to just the quarantine, we would have added our names to it, but there was sort of quite severe criticism of the government, which isn't our style.
Okay. All right. And
do things quietly.
Fair enough. But just while I got you, in terms of, you know, the CAA or ABTAs, how they've been supporting the industry, have you been, you know, what's your view on how these different bodies have been supporting the industry through this crisis?
I think they've been doing their jobs. I think the CEA, their mandate is to protect the customer. And I think they've been consistent in that. They haven't got a remit to protect the travel trade or the travel industry. I think they've been consistent in their stance, and we respect that.
Okay, and ABTA?
I think ABTA have been making lobbying noises on behalf of the trade, and they've got a different role. They've got a much trickier role. They've got a kind of almost a dual role. It's less straightforward than the CEO.
Yeah, I think that ambiguity has been very difficult at times, difficult for them and difficult for the trade. And that's been apparent from lots of the comments. And there is definitely ambiguity.
Yeah.
Whenever that exists, it's very difficult to back one side or the other when you're serving the interests of both.
Yeah. And do you worry? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the reputation of the travel industry general through this crisis. Do you worry long term, or do you think? I mean, you're nodding, John.
Yeah, I am. I mean, we've done our best in difficult circumstances. I preferred earlier in this conversation, Lucy, to every day, you know, probably right now, we'll have staff, agents up and down the country, we'll have irate clients shouting at them, wanting their money back. So really, it's tough. We understand where tour operators are coming from. We totally we're a tour operator ourselves, so we know it's really hard getting money out of airlines and all of that. So but I think if you're a member of the public, then you actually look at the travel industry where we're quite concerned. I'm not trying to make a massive moral point that we, in the survey, came out well and others didn't, as you know. So I totally understand that. But if you're a customer, you can see that they would potentially not have a favourable view of the travel industry in its entirety.
I mean, lots of people are saying that, you know, in some ways there could be a silver lining for agents because, you know, those who have acted, you know, really given great customer service and that sort of reassuring role for the customers, they may win long term. So do you think that, I know we've still got a lot to get through, but assuming we do you think independent agents will have a good future?
Yeah, absolutely, we do. We think we think that. We have done a bit of media recently, and every time we do, we get a fantastic response from people who haven't ever booked with an agent before, and they constantly say, you know, I've booked online for the last 10 years. Trust me, we will be coming into a Hays travel shop and we will be booking with you because of the things primarily that we've been saying about doing everything in our power to save jobs. You know, a lot of companies have gone straight to the redundancy position. We haven't even had one discussion in the board about doing that. So I think that the response from the public is exactly in line with what you're saying. And you know, how big it'll be, I have no idea, but we definitely have evidence that they're saying, good on you, travel agents, we'll come back when the time is right, won't we?
Yeah.
Let's just hope they don't have short memory, because that does happen a lot, and people suddenly go, "Oh, I'll have that cheap price." But let's hope they remember.
Yeah. I'm sure that's right.
I'm sure that's absolutely true as well.
Let's just talk about your IG members. I'm conscious of time. I want to get through a few more things, but you know, they're a big part of your business. We had the headlines recently that travel insurance pulling out of the market, not covering anything for COVID, which of course impacts anybody selling dynamic packages or your, you know. So I wonder how that affects your IG members, because they sell a lot of those, you know, multi-contract packages, don't they, for you? So how have they been faring?
Well, I think the in Hays Travel, we've for quite a while, virtually everything that's Hays Travel branded, the vast majority, has always been a full package, either us acting as an agent for another tour operator, or doing our own tour operation, Hays Tour Operating, and that's kept things simple. Our independence group members, some of them, a minority, a couple of hundred agents that we've wanted. I mean, probably 10% or less have been doing multi-contract packages, because when the package travel regulations changed a couple of years ago, where essentially if you did a multi-contract package, it was classed as a package, and there are obligations to the client to act essentially as a tour operator. Many of the independent members who did do that, because of the risks to themselves in terms of taking on this extra responsibility, voluntarily said we don't want to do that. And so the few that we've got in that category, the world's changed totally, and so really they've been had problems because of what's happened, and been disproportionately affected. So we're finding the appetite of our independent group members to do that and for them to take that risk is virtually vanished, really, and because reality has really come home to them, and a lot of them are branding our Hays Tour Operating packages very successfully, some of them, in the sense that we've gone out with a peace of mind guarantee where we on Hays Tour Operating, where for selected airlines, selected hotels, it's mainly the airlines, sort of pretty rarely hotel, but sort of that they can get a full refund up to 6 weeks before departure, which is going down fantastically well. It's really, really, we're actually getting brand new bookings. Yeah, obviously not what we would be doing in normal circumstances, but it's going at least as well as we've hoped for. And some of our independence group members have piggybacked that initiative that we've done, and actually they're over-branding essentially our Hays Tour Operating peace of mind guarantee with their own branding on top of it. And I think, so I think that's going well.
Okay, and let's talk about, I mean, you were on Channel 4, Irene, you said you've been doing some media. I saw you on Channel 4 talking about how sales were so good. I mean, I think you said you were up, which I was surprised you said that, but I don't think you mean you were up on, I don't know, tell me how it's going, because it sounded like you were doing better than last year, which can't possibly be the case.
Yeah, well, touch wood. I mean, we had when we came back on Tuesday, we did a run through of the figures for the previous week, and I challenged them because they were so good. But on the Channel 4 interview, I said that we've got a guy in a call centre who actually made more money in April this year and did more bookings than he did in the same month last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is
Well,
amazing.
that's one guy, not the whole company.
And I think it's a relatively small part of our business, but in terms of whether the demand's there, it's definitely there. And
Sorry, John, is it demand for this summer or is it more into 2021 now?
No, it's mainly winter in 2021, and it's mainly it's limited for this summer for very obvious reasons. But this particular guy who Irene referenced made just short of £30,000 commission himself on his own in April, and he's already at 25. He's going to do about the same figure on his own.
Who is this guy? What's his secret?
Well, he's a good seller, obviously.
You're not going to tell anyone his name. You're going to keep hold of him.
but he's doing more than he did this time last year, which I think was the point that Irene was making. And really, the bulk of what we're doing is doing Hays tour operating with the peace of mind guarantee, because clients go, wow, that's great. You know, we're not taking a risk, and so.
Okay, so they're taking your holidays, but is there any trend in, what they're taking? Some people are saying, villas or self-contained accommodation is more popular. Or what are you seeing in terms of? I know they're booking Hays stuff, but what are they? Where are they booking to?
Yeah, well, lots of people are booking islands. So you can imagine that at the back end of this year, lots of people are booking the Canaries.
Yeah.
In the belief that they'll be able to travel then. And for next year, they're booking islands, so lots of the Balearics, and also lesser known places.
Yeah.
Rather than going to the main popular resorts. It's as if people are wanting to go to lesser known places because they might have more space or be under less pressure. And as you quite rightly say, villas and self-catering apartments are doing well as well. But but having said that, our number one seller last week was New York.
Where there's loads of people.
It's even got more cases than Sunderland, so
it's hard to predict then. I mean, I guess what's your views on, capacity? Because, everyone's talking that there'll have to be consolidation in the industry. I mean, that could be in retail, of course, and I'll ask you about that in a second, but obviously in the supply chain as well. What do you worry, should I say, about availability of capacity? Do you worry about what's going to happen with pricing? What are your views?
I think the world has changed and will change. That's for certain. We haven't really got a crystal ball. I know that's a kind of fairly obvious thing I've just said. One thing that we have done since the crisis is trying to take more control of our own destiny and promote. We've always had our own in-house tour operation, but I think we are doing more ourselves because it's in our hands, and we're not dependent on third parties. So that's one trend that's happening with us. The wider thing is, I don't really want to predict. I think it depends how long this goes on. Clearly, there's obvious financial distress out there, obviously. We've always had shearings earlier that there'll probably be others. Especially where companies are highly leveraged and got big debts before they came into this. So will it change? Absolutely, the landscape will be different.
Okay. And in terms of your tour operation, what proportion of your business did it represent before, and what do you predict it becoming?
I love, Lucy, you kind of, you always ask, and we always say, well, that's commercially sensitive, but well done for asking, Lucy. Safe to say it's a bigger percentage than it was before this happened. And also, really what's happening is in times like this, you learn who your friends are, who your good partners are, and we're doing really well for our good partners, and for obvious reasons, less well for our less good partners.
Yeah, so you see the number of suppliers that you work with shrinking going forward on a permanent basis?
Well, we hope it isn't permanent. We're not trying to do anything unilaterally and too hard, but we've just reached a stage, sort of 6, 7, 8 weeks in, where we're actually going, well, enough's enough, and we're doing it quietly and on a one-to-one basis. But obviously, that kind of thing does affect who we're going to sell going forward for obvious reasons.
Okay, and just back to my point about consolidation, it's probably another question that you'll just avoid, John, but
probably.
Well, I'll give it a go. But clearly you've been, acquisitive in the past. You've bought, Thomas Cook, of course, but before that it was Bath Travel. You've been looking to grow your estate. If there are agents, in trouble and looking for a way out, would you be interested in taking any more on, or is that madness because you've got far too much on your plate with what you've got?
No, we're looking. We're still looking to grow. We're same as always. If the right opportunity comes along, we obviously feel we need to make plans as to have facilities, rolling credit facilities in place should we need it, which we're well advanced on doing. We might not. Current plans as we won't need it, but having.
Sorry, you're saying you may not. You're looking to get this loan, but you may not necessarily.
Yeah.
You want it as a cushion, do you?
Yeah, it is a cushion, and you just asked about acquisitions, so you might. So in terms of having a war chest, could be interesting for us.
I don't think we're behaving any differently at all in that respect. And as you can imagine, we have lots of approaches. We always have had. And at the minute, the prices might be a bit different, so we might look at them a bit more closely. But
yeah.
we're not behaving any differently to the way we always have.
Okay, and would it be just in retail, or could we see you look at other aspects, particularly with what you've said about wanting to control more of your own destiny? I mean, it's not just agents that might be up for sale. There might be other opportunities.
Yeah,
we're very open-minded, and as we've grown the Hays travel tour operating, that it then becomes obvious that there are other niche businesses that would be very attractive to us.
Any notes?
Full stop. Okay, I don't think I'm going to get any more. Listen, I'm conscious of time. Just very quickly, I've had a lot of very senior people on these webcasts, which has been fantastic. I've always asked at the end about how it has been to be a leader of a big business or any business through such a very difficult time. And I wondered, just finally, your thoughts on, the scale of the challenge and, what you think you've done well and what you think you could have done better at. How hard has it been to lead something like this?
Go first.
I think it's been very hard because we've had to make very serious decisions which have had an impact on lots of people. And I think, we're not a very hierarchical organisation, and that there's very few layers. There's literally 2 layers between John and I and the people we work with who sell holidays for us in the shops. And we know the impact of our decisions. Therefore, for us, the most important thing is that they hear it from us, and they hear from us why it is that we've taken this decision at this time. And we do that as clearly as we can. We don't always do it perfectly, but we pay attention to doing it with absolute integrity. And I think in times of crisis, it's incumbent upon leaders of organisations to step up to the plate and front that in the same way that they would front good news. So we're just about, after this interview, to go off into our garden.
Nice sunny day.
and we've got somebody waiting to do a video again to our staff where we're going to be talking again about a couple of issues. But we've always made sure that they hear first. We've always made sure that they hear it from us. We've tried to make sure that we communicate regularly, although sometimes the weeks just disappear. And we should have been doing this video last week, and I don't know where last week went.
I know, we seem to be busier than ever, even though we're at home.
So I think visible leadership and fronting the big, tough decisions and not just taking the glory. So I think that's been a characteristic, maybe.
And in terms of hard decisions, then, would you say you think we're through the worst now? It's obviously been a horrible period, but would you say we're through the worst and, you know, there's not, the pain is, or is there more pain to come?
No, we thought that in week 4. We thought in week 4 we'd had the worst, and we've had poor Shearings. I mean, all those lovely people at Shearings and all of their subsidiary brands, you know, we know, as you do, we know the people who led that organisation with passion and determination. So we keep thinking we've reached the peak, and it's going to be a sunny slope down the other side, and then something else comes back and hits us, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that's exactly what I think. I think really we've been hoping for, it's a bit of a cliche, saying hoping for the best, and obviously we want summer to happen and to be great. But preparing for the worst is what we've been doing. So all of our forecasts have been for no flying in the summer and potentially even beyond that. So it's difficult doing all of this while, every day's thrown up more and more challenges, and there'll be more over the weekend. There'll be more on Monday. It's kind of interesting.
All right. Okay, well, listen, it's fantastic to see you, because I normally see you much more than this, and I've not seen you until now. So thank you very much for joining us, and we do wish you and your staff and everything that you're doing, we wish you all the best. So, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to you again in a few weeks' time, and things may have changed. As you say, it changes all the time. So we'll hopefully get you back on here. But thank you for your time today, to John and to Irene.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.